Time for Type 40 Live's early edition, the live stream Doctor Who magazine show on Rumble, X, YouTube and Facebook. It's where we talk about all things Doctor Who right across the Whoniverse itself, from all the way back then to the right here and the right now. Us and you, of course, in the live chat. That's full of fellow friends, fans and companions, as always. And we're going back 45 years to a period of immense significance, changeover, crucial changeover that shook Saturday tea times, to salute one of the key figures from that era, a mischievous, multifaceted man, writer and script editor, as we leave summer behind here on your Monday Type 40 Live. And there's plenty of room in this brightly lit TARDIS console room too, as well, for us to get our mouths in gear, get our heads sorted as well, to sort of tap back in to some primal, formative Doctor Who memories for some of us, and maybe some that have made our fandoms and viewing experiences since. There's lots more to get into before we get there, including some reconnections with many panelists who've made their way back for this special show. Not least of all, her. Hi, Sarah.
Hello. Hi, Dan. Hi, everyone. Yeah, well, I thought this is quite an action-packed one, so I thought you might need an extra pair of hands around the console, love.
The Cynthia Rothrock of Type 40, aren't you?
Exactly.
Well, before you get me in a half Nelson or anything like that, this is the bit where I'm supposed to say I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks. I totally forgot that. They may know, but they may not. It's always best to have some bases covered, I think. But have you been okay, or is it best not mentioned?
But no, unfortunately, I was at the hospital at the weekend. Nothing serious, not to worry. But yeah, it's been fun. Just, last bit of drama just before the kids go back to school. But yes, we're here. End of summer, 1st of September.
Yeah, it has already changed, turned. The skies are more steely, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's already going dark earlier. Have you noticed that? Which is perfect for us as Doctor Who fans. But yeah, I wasn't expecting it quite this soon.
No, it'll look a lot better, a lot cozier from the TARDIS view screen. I think it's still a blue sky there, wherever they've hitched up. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The street lights will start coming on earlier and earlier, and things will start to get that little bit parkier. It's an excuse to break out the candles, though. I discovered candles last year, but that's a whole other story. I know. Shh, don't tell her. Keep it to yourselves. Okay, so who are we going to bring on next? We've got a whole round table to file in, including, I am happy to say, back on board, Charlotte Shields.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm picturing you with candles now, just like everywhere in your house.
That's it. It's a lot like that. It's a lot like the console room in the TV movie. And now and again, I bang a miniature symbol and just go like that. And
are they scented candles with like
that's
pretentious scents? Yeah, like warm linen and
or jasmine and stuff like that.
Do I look like a jasmine kind of guy? I'll leave it to your imaginations. Instagram and X at Type 40. Which candles do you think? But I've been chilling out too. Yes, happy to have you back, Charlotte. I know you've had a hectic day, so you can sort of chill out with us and chew through some memories too of mostly classic Doctor Who.
Well, it's going to be more fun listening to stuff tonight than I've had to listen to today, because it's
oh dear,
just inset day.
No pressure,
so I get told all the same information I always get told, but you have to sit there and just listen to it. So Doctor Who's a lot more fun a topic to have a listen and talk about.
Definitely.
It definitely is, particularly when you can involve Gary Akers and one of his entertaining hats.
Hello, everybody.
Well, never disappoints with that diamond logo.
Look, I was going to say, considering what we're going to be talking about today, this was basically a must, because we're going to be talking about absolutely true, top of the line Who. I got to say before we start, Dan, though, that if you tell me that you know, you use these candles while you're in the tub, along with like rose petals in the water. You and I are going to have a serious talk.
We're not there yet. Things haven't got quite
very
that
good.
It's not a cry for help. Okay. Okay. But if I was to issue a cry for help, I've got a fair idea that lots of people would rush to answer the call, to bat, to join us here on the Fold. Do they call it the Fold on the cricket pitch? I don't know, but I bet he does. David Milling's back.
Hello, it's called the Creed, and I would like to say I actually have candles lit. There's not 4 of them or handles for forks, I would like to say. But I have got the essence of guava, cardamom, and vanilla tonight. So they always help me chill me through bring my energy levels to the right level. But yes, hello everybody. And I'd like to echo Gary's sentiments that he made at the start of the show as well.
Oh, Dan's candles in the tub, you mean?
Well, Gary, you said that we're talking about proper Doctor Who tonight.
Oh, of course, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
So one of my candle wicks has just gone out. I just got relighted.
Right, whilst David is resetting his wick, it's an ideal opportunity for me to bring in. I'm thrilled to welcome back with a surround as well that matches the splat right behind us. Or we've missed him, and I know that you have. Welcome back, Anthony Weiner.
Good evening, everybody. Hello. It's great to be back. My goodness. When I was listening to the music at the beginning, I got really nervous. It was like listening to live TV, being flooded in before you had to start acting. I certainly got a buzz out of listening to the music, but it's lovely to be back. I love a candle too, and I'm in very good company this evening, so thank you.
Good.
I can't wait to find out your memories, your opinions, and your experiences in particular, Anthony, as regards the gentleman we're going to be talking about later on. Because you actually met him. I never did. So that's going to be fascinating. Happy to have you back on board, mate. I know there'll be lots of people in the live chat saying exactly the same thing on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. And last but definitely not least, he's vertical, sort of, but in a seated position. He was living it up at the weekend, taking to the stage for a screening of his wonderful Hooligans, but I'm happy to say that Luke Walters has made it back. He's in one piece and he's cognizant. Here he is.
Yes, absolutely.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
I survived Pop World. Pop World was fantastic.
Did Pop World survive you?
Tell you what, I got some really booky videos from Pop World. But speaking of candles, have you ever smelled? Is it Gwyneth Paltrow's candle that smells like her vagina?
Is that a euphemism?
No, it's candle. Yeah,
smells like a muff.
But I tell you what, the one thing that you cannot beat, and I love, is
yes.
You know, I went to see Michael Bublé. I love a Bublé bath. Can't beat it. Loads of bubbles, some candles, and some Bublé on in the background. Boiling hot, just chill out.
Gary's
11 minutes in, and we're already like gone off the rails here.
Gary's not happy.
Luke, I saw your videos of Michael Bublé. I'm so jealous. I absolutely adore him.
Oh, you a fan too?
I am, especially of his Christmas album. It was very weird seeing him like out and about, like this time of year. Like, no, Michael Bublé, it's winter. I associate him. It's like Mariah Carey. Just comes out in the winter.
That is a good album, though.
Yeah, I was assuming.
I've met Atomic Kitten, if that counts.
I'd always assume
the second iteration.
Just like in between Red Nose Days, Lenny Henry sort of sits in the cupboard somewhere recharging. I always imagine that Michael Bublé, in between sort of mid-January and early November, I don't know, he just like stays in the house or catches up on Netflix. Just that's it. But apparently not. He's out and about, and Luke has seen him. But you've also triumphed yourself on the stage, haven't you? This past weekend, you were at Quad in Derby with our friends, the Hoovers, there as a feature, entertainment at Hooverville, Hooverville 16. So how was that at Quad in Derby?
Yeah, it was. I don't know how much entertainment we provide apart from us being drunk and hassling and heckling the We Sound Familiar lot on a Friday night. But Yeah, it was great. I thank you for having us along. And I met a lot of people in the chat as well. And I know Rose give me a rose and it's still there. So thank you for that. So, yeah, everyone was really nice. And my missus, funnily enough, who's not a Doctor Who fan at all, she had the best time ever. And she's now a Doctor Who fan. She loved the conventions. And we actually did one as well on the way back to Manchester. We made a pit stop at York and we went to go see, what was it? It was like York Unleashed, and we went and met Peter Davison as well. So it was good. Nearly convinced Joe Martin to come out for a curry with us. It was You'll
get it next time. You'll get it next time.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it was grand, and it was so nice to meet. I got told I look a lot shorter in real life, which makes no sense because I'm
supposed to take that.
I'm in a box. I'm literally in a box, and they were like, "You're a lot shorter in real life." I was like, "That makes no sense," but no, everyone was really, really nice and very welcoming. And yeah, thank you.
How tall are you?
Instead of 6 foot.
Oh, okay.
Generic male answer, 6 foot.
Yeah.
I'm glad you all had a brilliant time. You know, you were very much representing Type 40 as well. Lots of people were there asking about yourself. And there's Chris Walker-Thompson as well, who's also been on several of our shows there, stood at the centre. You're all there on stage. So this was you did a screening and a Q&A, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and Chris compared it, bless him, and he said he was more nervous doing that than when they did their We Sound Familiar entertainment quiz and show the night before. Yeah. And Chris was fantastic as well, and he's a part of Hooligans. He voices the Sontaran in it as well. So yeah, but it was good. Yeah, everyone that came to it was really, really nice, and we had some good questions, and we had a nice little chat as well. And yeah, it was just a nice atmosphere. It was very welcoming, and all the fans were really, really nice to us.
Oh, well, congratulations. Thoroughly deserved. There he is, living his best life.
I was a little bit hungover. A little bit. Oh, there's very red in there. But I was a little bit hungover.
They've got the comfy chairs up for you. Yeah. Look at them.
You are a bit short, actually.
No, thanks.
Think of it.
She is.
I said the sweetest things.
I'm really 5'4", so.
Yes, so if you were there for Hooverville, let us know there in the live chat. And obviously our congratulations again to everybody involved at the Hoovers, our friends there, Steve and Andy and everybody who puts that together every year. Another barnstorming event, fabulous pictures across social media. Well done to all involved. That shows them how it's done, doesn't it? That shows all the official sort of BBC stuff. That's how you do it with the real fans there. Anthony, you know, you've done lots of conventions over the years, haven't you?
Oh yeah. To be fair, I really miss those really small Doctor Who conventions in the 80s and 90s. You know, it was I was younger then, and it was exciting to see a Doctor Who actor or a writer or a producer, script editor. It was exciting, and those smaller events I really enjoyed. So now I think like Showmasters, those kind of big events like Comic Con, where you get to stand with an actor for a photograph or an autograph. For me, that isn't quite the same convention experience. I know lots of people love it.
Yeah,
but it's not the same convention experience that I kind of came into Doctor Who experiencing. So I do miss them, and so it sounds great that Hooverville continues that trend of that kind of smaller Doctor Who convention. My first ever Doctor Who convention, it was 1985, and it was here in Bath. And the people that were there, you know, sadly no longer with us, but people like Graham Williams, and Ian Martin, and Dennis Spooner. So, you know, names of Doctor Who luminaries. And I was younger, I didn't quite realise, you know, how important these people were, because chances are you weren't going to see them that often again. So I was very fortunate indeed to come into the convention circuit when I did.
Hotels were smaller then, weren't they? And you had to negotiate a Corby trouser press at every turn. I remember, David, back in the day.
Well, absolutely. You shouldn't dismantle your Corby trouser press, even if you are bored. Alan Partridge reference there. But I do remember seeing some archive convention footage where Tom Baker turns up with a Tesco carrier bag. I mean, that's fantastic. That you know, he just turns up on stage with the Tesco's carrier bag. And just starts talking to everybody about only stuff that Tom Baker could. And I generally, I haven't been to many conventions. Been to a few talks with an evening with sort of thing, because I find lots of people around quite. I find it difficult to deal with. So
more intimate.
Yeah,
gigs.
I prefer the more intimate events, and because they just have more charm, if you know what I mean. So I'm with Anthony on that one, very much so.
I think Doctor Who used to be a really rather intimate show, and whilst I would never not have it come back in the 21st century, Anthony, I know what you mean. I think it was a different animal. The fandom certainly was. I think we celebrated and we sort of connected with it and reached into it in a far more sort of personal way.
And when you look back over how fortunate you were going to those smaller conventions in the mid-80s, you know, people like John Pertwee had stopped being the Doctor only 10 years previously. So it was still quite new for him, although 10 years when you're 15 sounds epic, you know, it was still quite recent for him. So, you know, him turning up to a Panopticon, I remember, you know, smoking a cigarette, just talking about the love of the program and then meeting fans and signing, you know, in many ways, he still thought he probably was, well, he continued to be the Doctor until the day he died. But, you know, he was still feeling he was the Doctor and had to meet the fans that wanted to go and see him. It was like a labor of love. It wasn't a business almost. It was their commitment to the program, you know, but they would all quite richly, you know, strike up a cigarette. John Nathan Turner would, you know, pump cigarettes through most of the show. So it was
funny that the more corporate the show gets, the brand gets. As much as I do applaud that, and it's not that I think they shouldn't do it, but the more that it does it, I think the danger is that it loses that kind of more homely feel, Sarah, which I think appealed to a lot of people coming into it 20 years ago in the first place. So I think everything in moderation would be my sort of advice, which it often is. I drive my kids mad with that piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, I've used that adage quite a few times. But yeah, I hate the kind of like in the production line, like you herded like cattle, and the really large ones really put me off. I think I'd rather have the intimate. But of course, I completely get it. I would have liked the olden day pricing as well. That'd have been brilliant. Or when you used to get autographs for free with your little book, that'd have been fantastic.
You did. And if it's intimacy you crave, I'm happy to say we've got lots of that, courtesy of everybody in the live chat there, joining us to talk about all things Doctor Who on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X as ever. So let's get up close and intimate with everybody over there.
Oh no,
that's a new one.
David, he's had more risque ones than.
Oh no, but that's just no.
Well, it slipped down very nicely. Of course, thank you to Mandy Gill for that. It's much appreciated. Rose Kirby is in the live chat, and she says there, Luke, it says it's the official beginning of the meteorological autumn.
Yes.
So she's calling it the first day of the autumn there, and obviously Rose was there on Saturday to see you, to meet you in person, and remark upon your height or not.
No, it wasn't Rose. It felt like it, to be fair, today, because it was absolutely hammering down in Manchester. It's dark, it's cold. I had to go pick up a delivery, and then I found out I had a very bad placed hole in my shorts, and I thought there was a draft going on, and it was really cold out. Just leave it at that. It was really bad.
We do have crosswords over this matter. Stephen O'Neill is arguing the case that autumn doesn't begin for another 3 weeks. I think we'll leave them to that.
That is technically correct. However, the meteorological autumn does begin on the 1st of September.
There you go.
So they are both right. They are both right.
Welcome to Garbage there in the live chat, and Lord Thoth, two of our fabulous moderators. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Adrian James is in too with an evening, everybody. And we've got Richard too. We've got Cesar of Diplos, who's asking, where's Anthony? He's here. There he is. Look. There he is. You can't miss him. Yeah.
I'm so happy Anthony's back, by the way.
Yeah, it's lovely
thank
to
you.
see it.
I've missed him so much.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be seen, isn't it? It's nice to be seen.
What's your picture, Anthony?
Sorry?
What's your picture this month?
This month from
Rear
the first
window.
is Rear Window.
Oh, that's
It
nice.
was Jaws.
Nice.
It was Jaws, but now it's Rear Window. I thought it was
think I know.
original autumnal, ready
It's
for.
beautiful. I think I've seen other work by that same artist as well. I think they've done lots of sort of cult TV and Bond films and things like that. Yeah, fabulous. Funky's welcoming Sarah back. Good to see
Hi,
Starry.
Duncan. Yeah, good to be back with this lot, this rowdy lot, this rabble.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Sarah, as well. I said, "Oh, Anthony, so nice to see you." And then it's nice to see you too, Sarah, as well.
Backpedaling.
Stephen
Yes,
O'Neill
I am,
suggests, Sarah, that the only time it's wise to really use candles, or certainly for a man, I think he's getting at, is during power cuts. And so here he's thinking back to the power cuts of 1978 and the winter of discontent, when it was okay to light a candle and feel secure in your masculinity. I think that's what he's pointing at.
I'm telling you, a buble bath will change your life.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out.
Oh,
Just
I might try
scar,
that. I might try
Gary.
that.
Change your life.
More Anthony fans in the live chat, including Helen here, who's watching on YouTube, and we've got Rose Kirby is doing the 2 Ronnie's gag as well. I think we've had that's two so far, isn't it? I think David was in early with that one, fielding that one. Stuff.
Yeah, I think it's nice little sort of like half stop.
Gregory Jones has met and chatted with Mr. Manilow. I take it he means Barry Manilow. I can't think of anybody else that would fit into, Gary. Are there any other Manilows that I'm unaware of?
no, that's who. I'm sure it's
rare. They're a very rare currency, aren't they? Craig Lighthale has joined us on YouTube as well on the subject of height. To think that people say that this show is like really sort of hard nosed and nasty. We've got the weather, we've got height, we've got cakes, with all this stuff.
Candles.
So Craig Lightaler has dived in on the subject of height. Apparently Sylvester has lost a couple of inches since his hip operations. If that's true, then
yeah, it is. Yeah.
You learn something new every show. What else? Funky's in. Talking about conventions too. Panopticons used to be the great conventions in the 90s. Went to a couple of those myself. Anthony had a brilliant time. I had some of my artwork signed by Sophie Aldred when I was like 15, 16. She was so sweet when I was a kid. Well, she still is, I suppose.
And it was always
many years ago.
It was sorry, Luke. Panopticon was a big event. It was like the 90s version of Comic Con. It was the event you had to go to. There were about 700 or 800 people there, and they would always pull out a guest that you'd never seen. So at that point, in the late 80s and 90s, there were various actors that we hadn't seen and companions we hadn't seen. So a Panopticon would always get the first convention appearance of Wendy Padbury, the first. It was firsts. So it was always quite exciting for them to pull something out of the bag.
It's hard to imagine now, isn't it? All these firsts, Sarah. You think, we read about it, we see clips of them on Blu-ray box sets and DVDs and things like that, and yet there are people who are there watching sort of history being made, the other track of Doctor Who history.
Yeah, it's strange to think like once upon a time there was these firsts, because I think we just took everything for granted, because we're just used to seeing these celebrities, year upon year. Obviously a lot of them are getting older now, but still, I mean, to know that there's so many in the 70s and 80s, and Tom, he did that event in that pub, didn't he, a few months ago, and he's in his 90s, and you're just like,
still there?
Gosh, yeah. and just looking so well, and still got the energy and the enthusiasm to do it, and I'm just like, oh, good on you, all of you, for doing this. I love that you care so much.
Cesar offers a word of caution to Anthony Weiner here. You're in danger from that newly hatched crinoid pod that is just to your left and our right.
Yeah,
so watch out for that.
No touch pod. Anthony.
Yeah. He's a bit of a
very,
clean-
very dangerous.
Magnificent Seven on the panel says Rob Alexander. Happy Labor Day, says Greg out there at the timescales. To
so
you,
much.
Gary. Happy Labor Day to everybody in the States.
Happy
all
Labor
of us.
Day.
I've only just found out what it is, David. So I'm gonna brush over my ignorance and just make out like I've always known.
Me too. Yes.
Okay, so where next? Where first? You could do a lot worse than head over to well, the podcatcher of your choice, really. Audible, Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. That's where you can find the Type 40 podcast there. Our latest episode was my long-form conversation for Doctor Who Podcast Day with the fabulous, the legendary, sorry, Ken, but you are, the legendary Ken Deep. We differ on a lot of things, but we do see eye to eye over plenty more, including the Doctor Who fandom. So go and catch up on that. And our news, reviews, previews, geek outs, and deep dives there across all major podcatchers and our home feed at type40.podbean.com. But this here is Type 40 Live on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. We're getting stuck into the issues of the week that you're probably all talking about and thinking about. And there's plenty coming up, including our salute to that key figure in Doctor Who history who has sadly passed away in the last few weeks. Okay, but before we get there, let's go here.
Welcome to Type 40. Was that good enough? I hope so. Or exterminate, exterminate, exterminate.
Gravitas, guys, Gravitas. We talked a bit about Gravitas and actors with weight. No, not that kind of weight, sort of real weight and presence. We talked about this the other night, and the idea that it's getting harder to come by. I think when I think of Gravitas and Doctor Who, the last time I sort of really felt that I was in the presence of such a doctor, such an actor, and the series had a lead like that. It's been a few years ago now, but it was under the watch of the great Peter Capaldi. You can't fake it. You've either got it or you haven't you, Sarah? I think that's how it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Capaldi just had it in spades. He was just effortless. And I really miss him. It's 8 years now. It's a long time.
I've often said to you, haven't I, Charlotte, how I still sort of miss Matt Smith's Doctor. I think that despite the fact he was on the show for a while, he wasn't a Shooty or certainly not an Eccleston. He was around for a while, but I felt there was more gas left in the tank. And I think with hindsight, I think the truth could be said of Peter Capaldi as well.
I think with Capaldi, there's sort of this cloud a little bit, because now we don't know for sure, but we sort of heard little bits, and I think it's very clear that he left with this sort of before his time. I think Capaldi definitely had that also, and he could have done a lot more years, especially as they had that arc of him being so harsh at the beginning of his run and being this sort of really of a throwback to classic era, and then you saw the mellowing and you saw him develop to be a little bit more welcoming and his tone shifting. So to have that even more, I think would have been fascinating to see actually a couple more series. But like you said, Capaldi, it's the voice, it's the way he holds himself, it's the way he delivers lines. He's we were so lucky we did have him. And I think we're sort of realising that more and more now, that with Moffat's run, and I've always thought this, but I'm seeing more people comment.
As velvety as as Peter Capaldi, what a wonderful.
He's infiltrated us.
He is.
Sorry. I don't know what. Go on, carry on. Sorry.
That I think we had the best castings of a run for Doctors with Moffat. We had Matt, and then we had Peter.
Yeah, I liked Peter. I agree with you, Charlotte. I like the fact that he did gravitas, humor so well. There was so much more in the tank, and he's given it. He was good at comedy. He's played darkness really, really well. He was so dark, and he showed a vulnerability as well. And the two episodes back to back of Heaven Sent, which I still think is the best piece of drama I've watched in a very, very long time. Then to go on to his darkness after all that into Heaven Sent, into Hell Bent, when he's sitting at the table on Gallifrey, just saying, "I don't give a shit. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to be a right bastard." And that's how, for me, darkness should be played by an actor playing the Doctor. He had such a range that we are so badly missing at the moment.
I think we saw a fraction of it. Honestly, David, that time he was on the show, which I know again was 3 full seasons, quite a few specials too. I felt, again with hindsight, that it could have gone any one of a number of places.
Yeah,
and I think it's a different kind of longevity that he would have offered to somebody like Matt Smith, but because simply the fact is he was much more of a kind of a veteran actor, a great deal more experience behind him, and I would have loved to have seen and heard more. I think that had he been with it for 6 or 7 years, would have seen a character probably more evolved than anybody who'd ever played it before, including Tom Baker. And here we are in 2025, and the sad thing, the sad reality is that I don't think there's many of us that wouldn't want more of Peter Capaldi in one form or another. The only person who doesn't seem interested in Doctor Who and Peter Capaldi for the time being is sadly Peter Capaldi. The long-standing producers of audio dramas and audio books, Big Finish, have been trying to tempt him back to the role in the same way that they have Jodie Whittaker and Christopher Eccleston. They've not been successful yet, but it seems that they've decided to.
If you know what I mean,
I think there's some truth in that, but that's not going to stop Big Finish. They're pushing on with further stories, and they've announced over the last few days that they've selected the actor who will take the character as created by Peter Capaldi. They're going to take it forward in future audio productions. If you haven't seen it, here's the video.
And as velvety as the jacket of Jon Culshaw, Peter himself.
Okay, let's try that again.
Gremlins tonight, folks.
It's the Goblin King.
Well, we're here at the Soundhouse Studios today. Today has been the first time of recording some of the dialogue for the 12th Doctor. As Peter Capaldi, what a wonderful atmospheric voice that occupies just here. Great sense of attack, and as velvety as the jacket of Jon Culshaw, Peter himself.
So obviously that's Jon Culshaw, their well-known impressionist and voice actor, now voicing the 12th Doctor for Big Finish Productions. And I saw this promo again over the weekend. This is to line up with their Halloween anthology. It's coming out later in 2025. And I was surprised that they'd chosen Jon Culshaw. And then, because I've never heard him do Peter Capaldi before, but as soon as he started doing it there, I got a bit of a shiver there, Anthony. I mean, Jon Culshaw's good at this stuff. We've all seen him do his thing, particularly Tom Baker. He's been doing it for years. And yet when I heard that Peter Capaldi, I thought, if I closed my eyes, I could have sworn that was Peter Capaldi. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I also saw this video in the week, and I was amazed because, as you say, Dan, you can close your eyes and you can hear Peter Capaldi. It must be really. When I was watching that clip, then when you were just playing it, it must be really hard, mustn't it, to keep that up for an entire script? Because he's so good in that small, that small section there. To keep that up through an entire story through a script is incredible. Well done, him. Sounds great.
To stay in character. And when he described how he finds it, how he reaches the character, Luke, he says, it occupies this part of your throat, and he said, nod, and he makes it sound so easy. And yet it's not easy. You've got to really have a mastery of your instrument, of your vocal cords, haven't you?
Yeah, I bet Chris Walker-Thompson is fuming right now over this. No, I'm only joking. I've been with Chris over the weekend. He also does a very good 12th Doctor impression that people at Hooverville will know. He is not bitter the slightest. But no, I think the rumor of what I heard was at the weekend is Big Finish heard him doing. I think he did an impersonation of Billy Connolly, because I don't think he's ever done 12, and I think they heard him do Billy Connolly, and they were like, "Well, if you could do Billy Connolly, you could do Capaldi." So I think that's what it was. I think that's where it come from. But yeah, best of luck to it. I know Capaldi's had a bit of a run. I'm a bit to and fro on Capaldi's Doctor. I really like him as a Doctor. I think he only has one good season as the Doctor. I think he's too muddled from Intervention. Like, is he a good man? Then he's riding on a tank, and his characterization is all over the place. And there's only one season that he actually nails being the Doctor because the writing is better. But I think the episodes are quite poor. I think season 10 is quite poor, really. But I think he's an incredible actor, and I think his Doctor is good. Where I think the writing let him down massively. And yeah, I wanted to see more of him because I think by season 10 he just hit that stride. And I know he doesn't want to come back, and for reasons unknown to us, we've heard rumors. But if he's not going to come back, then Jon Culshaw is a perfect replacement. I think he sounds great. He gets the character. He knows Doctor Who inside out and upside down. So who better to take over essentially than Jon Culshaw? And best of luck to him.
Sarah, you and I talked recently about Peter Capaldi's latest album, his appearance at Glastonbury on Type 40 Extra, if you remember. And I think that we poked a little fun because it's quite funny in some respects, but the truth of the matter is Peter Capaldi is busy doing other things. I think that David's right about there being. I think there's clearly some sort of pain there. There's something there, but in the meantime, Capaldi is off ticking more boxes and doing very well in other productions, isn't he? And putting these albums out, and there's the artistic side too. So I simply get the impression that he's a very busy man, and there are only so many hours in the day. Weeks in the year, etc. I mean, what's your take on this? And what do you think of Jon Culshaw there? Because I know the 12th Doctor means the world to you.
He does. Well, when I first heard about it, I was a little bit miffed because I thought, well, why have we got an impressionist, albeit a very, very good impressionist, when Peter's still around?
Yeah.
But, I get it. If he's not interested for whatever reason, and I think David has got, hit the nail on the head. I think there is hurt there. Maybe it'll be resolved one day. We got Tom back after all those years. We've got Eccleston back. So fingers crossed, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, we might get Capaldi back. But in the meantime, when I heard this interview with Jon, I was just absolutely blown away. And like you, Dan, I did have this really visceral reaction to it. Oh my God, he just sounds like him. And I love Jon, he's brilliant. He's brilliant as the Brigadier. We've all heard his tone. And he is a Doctor Who fan. Like Luke was saying, he knows this stuff on the top of his head. So I'm happy for him to be a stopgap in the meantime. But God, it is so frustrating. He seems to be the only one. I mean, obviously Matt's far too successful. But again, I'm hoping, as he gets older, they both might come back into the fold eventually, when maybe for the 70th anniversary, we'll get them all. So he is open. But yeah, best of luck, Jon. I'm really excited, to hear what he's got to do.
What I quite like about the impression, because I've heard a few fans who try, there's some fan impressionists out there. The guy they had before this, Jacob Dugman, I don't know how you say his surname. For me, I heard a bit of him because they had him being Capaldi for some audios as well. And people tend to either do two things when they try and be Capaldi. They either get really shouty or they get really, really Scottish. And what I like about...
Aren't they both the same?
We disavow that comment.
Yeah.
The Scots watching, our friends.
Sorry.
It's all right. One of my best mates is Scottish and he'll understand. But what I like about what Culshaw did there, he understood that actually Capaldi had that in-between softness, this sort of wispiness almost to his voice, this sort of storytelling voice. And that's actually so much harder to get right. And that shows that you need somebody with skill to do that and not just do, like I said, the obvious things of, I'm going to be really angry and shouty, or just try and have that really strong Scottish accent. Capaldi, one of his major gifts was how he changed his tone and his voice, and soft and loud, and how he played with that so much. So you need somebody who can do that just as an actor, and that's what Culshaw can always do. So I think he's probably the best we're going to get, I agree, until hopefully Capaldi's one day does do some audios.
I want Jon Culshaw to thrive doing this. It seems to describe him as a stopgap, you can't help but describe it as that, because this is Peter Capaldi's role. He created it. He brought it to life. Okay, it was informed by other people who'd done the job before, wasn't it? Gary, undoubtedly, and Capaldi was very open about that, and Culshaw even referenced that in that video there. I obviously I hope they serve Jon Culshaw good stories here that will do him and the original characterization justice, you know?
Yeah, Peter Capaldi, I adored his era. He and Matt Smith are constantly jostling for first place of my favorite new Who Doctor. But I loved this interview because the first part of it is basically him giving what I thought was a very eloquent and heartfelt almost tribute to what Capaldi brought to the show, which I think was dead on accurate. And he talked about all the different sides of Capaldi. So clearly, he doesn't, he was able to recognize all the nuances that Capaldi brought to particular stories, particular scenes. And the few times where mid-sentence, he would go from his voice to Capaldi, my jaw hit the floor. It was just, and then when he did it, I just started like giggling because I was just so impressed by, and then at one point he switches in mid-sentence to Tom's Indomitable speech from Ark in Space, and I couldn't believe it. And then he switches to Pertwee, and then he does the mid-sentence switch to Capaldi again. I just had the big stupid grin on my face because I couldn't believe. I just closed my eyes and just listened, and I couldn't tell any of the difference. But the fact that it's not just, to me, somebody doing an impersonation, but it's somebody trying to almost in a way go beyond that and channel the Doctor, and the person doing that is informed by what is his own obvious love and regard for the era. Which makes it that much more special to me. So, of course, it would be fantastic.
Jon Culshaw spoke about it so well, so beautifully. It made me want to race back to Deep Breath and watch it all again,
Yeah, and you know what? I just wanted to say that to me, the Capaldi Doctor, in my mind, is really the only Doctor that had a definable arc from his first episode to his last. I mean, he starts off, asking himself, is he a good man? And then he refers to Clara as she cares, so I don't have to. And then ends where he's pleading with both masters to just be kind. I mean, that's in my mind, a definable arc over his first 3 seasons that we never really got in that same way with the other Doctors.
People, there's mixed results here in the live chat. Some people aren't feeling it. It's fair to say, or some people just don't like Jon Culshaw. Okay, you do you and all that. But Funky says that most impressions of Capaldi are more like Malcolm Tucker than the Doctor. I can imagine that's probably true. Yeah. And Philip Royce suggests that he'd be interested actually to see a Big Finish season of Jon Culshaw playing his own Doctor to see what he could, under his own steam, do with the role. I can see where Phil's coming with that, Charlotte, because Jon Culshaw's more than capable of doing this, and as you said, he's such a huge fan.
Yeah, and I think that we are going to come to a point where you sort of people with Big Finish are going to just be a bit fed up of just hearing sort of a copy of somebody or something that's clearly based off something else. For them, because they had that Unbound range for years at Big Finish.
They did.
And people really loved that stuff because it was original, because it was their own sort of the actors they had in those. They were their own Doctors. So I think actually that would probably be a really good thing at some point for Big Finish to do when, like I said, they've sort of done the 9th Doctor set and this and all the other stuff to sort of have a bit of a different taste for people.
they've been so daring in the past. You know, they're brilliantly recasting the first 3 incarnations with Stephen Noonan, Michael Troughton, and Tim Treloar. Hugely successful ranges creatively, and giving each actor enough room to put their own stamp on the part over time, sensitively, to develop them in sort of parallel ways to the stories that we had on the television. They did it so beautifully with all 3 of those ranges. So to think they could do that potentially with Peter Capaldi, his Doctor, now played by Jon Culshaw. You know, Dalek El Arabia's in the live chat and suggests that Jon Culshaw can't act. I've seen him act. I've seen him act, David, albeit in sort of bit parts here and there. And I think he can act enough to pull this off and to potentially grow with it. So I think that's harsh.
Totally. I mean, John. Okay, yeah, he might not have gone to drama school. He might have started on the radio. He might have started as a DJ. He might have done that, but he's done enough work, and he's got that much of a back catalogue. Dead Ringers is still going. There's acting involved in that. Okay, it might not be et tu brute and you know, to be or not to be, but it is still acting. He is still got a wonderful range. I've got a lot of time for Jon Culshaw as a radio man myself, and he's an amazing talent, and he is a huge fan, and his knowledge about Doctor Who is immense. So ideally, yes, it would be wonderful if we could get Peter Capaldi to come back into it, but if not, you've got the second best option there, and he will approach. I'm sure he has approached the Big Finish work with a big heart, lots of love in his heart, and wanting to do the very best he can, not only for us, but by the 12th Doctor as well. So he won't want to. I'm sure he's the type of person that will do take after take after take after take to make sure he absolutely nails it for everybody. So yeah, it's not the perfect situation. The perfect situation is Peter Capaldi doing it, but it's the next best option. And to say is rubbish. I'm sorry, I have to strongly disagree with that. Strongly.
For now, yeah, Jon Culshaw is the 12th Doctor. It'll be very interesting to see where they go with this, how much they produce. For now, it's just this release coming first for Halloween. It's called Doctor Who Halloween, Sea Smoke and Other Stories, made up of 4 stories with different Doctors. The 12th Doctor story is called Merlin's Trap. That is very 12th Doctor, isn't it, Sarah? Merlin's Trap, and it's written by Hannah Kennedy. It's also
sounds wonderful. Yeah, I mean,
set for release this coming October, and does also feature sometime Type 40 voice and personality Mr. Stephen Noonan there as the first Doctor too. So yeah, congratulations to Jon Culshaw. He's there hitting the books. I'm sure he's going to take it as seriously as he has playing the Brigadier, and he voices Chameleon too, doesn't he? So he's well in there at Big Finish, and obviously, yeah, I can't wait to hear this. I think I might take a punt on this because I always enjoyed all those short trips releases from way back. That's Halloween, Sea Smoke and Other Stories coming this October from Big Finish. Okay, where next? Time for a break, I think, before we get into the rest of our conversation. This is the Type 40 Live Doctor Who ad break, where we put the 21st century on standby, at least, to wiggle the aerial and twiddle the dial, to tune in to the golden voices and golden faces from telly times past. Doctor Who legends flogging us all manner of everyday household tat back in the pre-Amazon days. Check out the Type 40 Live Doctor Who ad break and meet us back here in a couple of minutes.
This is a great drop of coca-leaky, Hamish. Aye. She was a fine wee bird, was her. It's the best soup I've ever tasted. Aye. She never let us down, even to this day. I miss the eggs, though.
What Hamish doesn't know is that his wife uses Knorr stock cubes
Simply pour boiling water over a chicken stock cube and you have a delicious meaty base for cockaliki soup without the bones.
Oh, it's how she would have wanted it. Aye, I suppose.
Nor stock cubes. Good soup and no bones about it.
I'd better give them a call. The house is on fire. You'll be late! Oh, stop! But I just walked you in there.
Did you wash my sports stuff?
Oh, in the airing cupboard.
Might be late tonight.
Good old yellow pages. We don't just help with things like a leaky roof. We can sort out more important things too.
Just for a couple of days. Where's Mum?
Better read this.
Just for a couple of days? On your own, are you?
Yes. Just for a couple of days.
Ever wonder what children think about?
I'm a super space fleet commander. Record flight from Mars, 90 minutes. Stand by for landing. Gosh, that was wizard. Now watch me zoom downstairs. Here's a super space station mess. Oh, look what's coming. Supersonic. Kellogg's Sugar Frosted Flakes. You can eat them right out of the packet.
From out of this world, Kellogg's Sugar Frosted Flakes. All sparkled and spangled with sugar. You need only pour on the milk and gobble them up. Space Fleet commanders love them. Schoolboys love them. All boys and girls love them. Delicious heart of the corn, sparkling, spangled flakes give children the fastest breakfast energy ever. That's the way to send children off to school, packed with energy. Give the children Kellogg's Sugar Frosted Flakes for breakfast every day.
We're back with Type 40 Live on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Our early edition covering the past, the present, and the future of all things Doctor Who. Here on the panel, our cheeky panel of pundits, an abundance of voices here for you to kick off your week in Geek. Ready or better now? Are you? Okay. Maybe not. Results may vary and all that. So yes, we're here again, joined by a round table. Where are they? Are they all back? Are they all ready? Let's have a look. Yes, nearly all. Back in the early 80s, I was, as I am now, a keen reader of Doctor Who magazine in its earlier form, Doctor Who Monthly. There was a long-running, long-format comic strip featuring the Fifth Doctor called Time and Tide. And it was illustrated by Dave Gibbons, written by Pat Mills, as all the best strips were. And reading that, watching the story evolve, as my Doctor was sort of taking his first real steps on the TV screen, it was a really special time for me. And Doctor Who seemed expansive and exciting in a way that it certainly had never been for me before that I'd witnessed. Everything seemed clean and fresh and new, and a lot of it seemed unknown as well. A great deal of that came from a couple of key appointments and bold creative decisions. There was names on title sequences that, for years I had no idea who those people were, what they looked like, how long they'd been involved, anything about them really. So even the names in title sequences had a sort of romance and mystique about them. In time now, after we've read so many books about the history of the show and been served some of the best documentaries I think any fans of any TV show could possibly wish for on the DVD and Blu-ray ranges, we know a lot more, and we can put faces to the names, can't we? And the byproduct of that, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, is a real sense of loss when anyone connected with the show, not just the stars that get all the adulation and the attention traditionally, not just them, do leave us. That happened again over the weekend when it was announced that Christopher H. Bidmead, the writer and script editor from the classic series, had passed away a short time ago. This was announced by his family just over the last weekend. He was 84 years of age. In 1980, Bidmead partnered up with revolutionary young producer John Nathan Turner as his new script editor throughout season 18. Season 18 began broadcasting 45 years ago, just this last weekend too. A hugely significant time for Doctor Who that got everybody to sort of sit up and pay attention, really, due to the combined efforts of these guys and those huge creative changes to take the show through to the 80s. Like many script editors, he would contribute stories himself. He escorted the commanding Fourth Doctor off into the light, really, and to reveal his breathlessly curious successor there, before taking that Doctor and his companions to the catacombs under the surface of a war-torn world in the far future. Imaginative stories, idiosyncratic tales, all brought to us by Christopher H. Bidmead. There's lots of hype, would you say? Notoriety? There's lots of myth. I think myth is the correct word, Anthony, that's sort of attached to this name. I mean, the fact that he's got his middle name is there, the H in the middle of it, that also adds mystique. Like Russell T Davies, what does the C stand for? What does the H stand for? Somehow it makes somebody sound that bit more big-brained, or even that slight distance away from us. And as a kid, I just assumed, because when I saw this man's name on the credits as something that he'd written, noted he was the script editor, that the stories themselves would be not necessarily, were they more intelligent, or were they just looking at Doctor Who, the character and the universe, from a completely different place? What's your take on that, Anthony?
I have to say, Dan, that was a really nice introduction to this part of the show. I was kind of listening to what you were saying, and I couldn't agree more. This was a different time for Doctor Who, wasn't it? Because Tom Baker had been the Doctor for such a long time, and like you, I didn't know anything else. You know, I'd got a few Doctor Who books. There were some pictures. I had the Doctor Who Monster book where you could look at old pictures of old Doctor Who's, but I'd never seen them on television. So this was an important time for being a Doctor Who fan, because this was the first time we were going to see a regeneration. I think when this first went out, and you're absolutely right in saying that Leisure Hive episode 1 went out 40 years ago, just this weekend. I don't know if I liked it when I first saw it, because it was so radically different to, I was 9 years old and enjoying, I think, what Chris Bidmead would say, the silliness of Douglas Adams. Silly was his middle name. And I was kind of quite enjoying that silly Doctor Who. It'd been very different from the Hinchcliffe and Holmes era of Doctor Who. It was very different, but I was still enjoying it. It was fun. City of Death is there, and people would argue one of the best Doctor Who's there's ever been. So when Christopher Bidmead came along with John and Barry Letts as executive producer, you felt that something was going to change. And I was at school watching a schools program, and they said, "Oh, now we're going to have a listen to the new Doctor Who theme." So it's like, gosh, this is good, isn't it? Middle of the day at school on that big television they used to trundle in, watching a program about, the new Doctor Who theme. And I absolutely hated it. And I thought, this doesn't feel right at all. So it's interesting now in retrospect how much I loved this particular series, but the 9-year-old me would have been lamenting the passing, I think, of the Douglas Adams silliness that was going to develop in this series.
It was a massive change that people were talking about. Doctor Who had sort of looked the same and felt the same for quite a long time, and I think it had gradually got more sillier. Let's be honest, it had gradually got sillier, and the production had started to look a little sort of threadbare. But obviously, we didn't really mind. In some ways, that was the nature of the beast. But my God, when the new version of Doctor Who really started to take flight, most obviously, let's say crashing into that new credit sequence, it did make people sit up and, okay, they are serious about taking this show into the 80s, into a new decade, and about telling instantly with the Leisure Hive, that telling stories that they maybe either hadn't for a while or hadn't even dared to before, and concepts that were very, very imaginative and seemed sort of anchored in a science which at the time seemed like sort of gobbledygook to me. But I think Christopher H. Bidmead and the various writers who worked on that did strike a nice balance. I never felt distanced from the show at all. Bidmead was an English screenwriter, script editor, and respected journalist, best known for his work on Doctor Who. He'd been recommended for the job by Robert Banks Stewart, who'd written Terror of the Zygons and The Seeds of Doom, wasn't it? So just a couple of stories.
Yes.
Up until then, Bidmead had been writing comedy for Thames TV in tandem with articles for these sort of big-brained scientific journals. It's yet another of those characters, Luke, like Douglas Adams, like Robert Holmes, Malcolm Hulke, who seem to have led the most unlikely lives. You think, how on earth did they find their way to writing for this Saturday tea time adventure show?
Yeah, it's a mad world. That's the glorious world of film and TV. 1 minute you're working on this, the next minute you're off to something completely different. But I thought you absolutely smashed it as well. I went back and I watched Logopolis and Castrovalva this morning, and I was like, oh man, this is that was very well timed up. Fair play. It always amazes me how well you do this. Like every time it just catches me off guard. But yeah, no, I thought if Douglas Adams was doing very whimsical, silly sci-fi, he brought it back to very hard-nosed, real science fiction, and it was refreshing to see. And you know, I thought Logopolis is an out-and-out classic, isn't it? It's not just because it's Tom's last one as well, and the Master's back, but I thought, you know, it's nice to delve into, harken back to towards the original. I thought, you know, where it is an educational show, when they delve into the science a bit more, when they're going into it, and not be so fantastical. And I just thought, yeah, I haven't seen Frontios as much or as recently, so I can't comment on Frontios as much. But again, I watched these two this morning to refresh me, and I was just like, these were fantastic bit of writing as well, and Castrovalva as well. As I always slipped under the radar for me, and I watched it back this morning. I was like, this is just so good as well. Yeah, it's a real shame. I think it started doing the rounds on Friday. I think it did that. It came out because Toby Adoki tweeted it, and everyone's kind of like, oh, okay, well, this is real then. So yeah, it's very, very sad, but his memory will live on in his writing, and long may it continue.
John Nathan Turner was such a larger-than-life figure, not just his dress sense, Gary. Christopher Bidmead, on the other hand, seemed quieter. He looked like a computer science teacher. He looked like he would probably hang out with Sir Clive Sinclair, Alan Sugar, the Elon Musks of their day, I suppose you could say. So he wasn't showy in the same way, but he must share equal amounts of the credit, I suppose, for the reinvention of Doctor Who in the first place in 1980, and then to take advantage too of the fact that the star was departing rather than back away from it. It must have been hard on both of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understand that him wanting, I mean, having the background in you know, being a computer like magazine journalist, that I understand, you know, his excitement at wanting to kind of take the show back to a more disciplined kind of, you know, back to the kind of like science education / entertainment remit from the show's origins. I get that. And there's an argument to be made. Did that necessitate them tossing out all the humor and whimsy, which is, to me, is distinct from silliness? I get that, but that doesn't necessarily necessitate tossing out all the humor and whimsy. But be that as it may, I do think that you know, his approach was very valid. He wants to introduce concepts that can be entertaining at the same time as educational for children. And the fact that, you know, he can, and again, like Luke, I rewatched Legopolis and Castrovalva last night, and then Frontios this morning. And it's great how he can explain to children how a computer works by having them envisage it as chanting monks arranged among the streets of a city, or that he can explain evolution depicted as kind of a somewhat dubious change from spiders to marsh creatures to humanoids. But even so, that's a way to kind of introduce the concept of evolution, and or the idea of recursion, as the Doctor looking out a window and seeing the town as a shattered mirror, or with a simple drawing of a map inside of a square where every building is somehow there 4 times. It's not simplistic, but it is a way to introduce these hugely complicated concepts to children, you know, in a very entertaining way. And, you know, with Legopolis, you know, it's great that how he can ground the very cliche idea of, oh, the entire universe is a risk, which has been overdone on every show, including Doctor Who. But he can take that cliche idea and merge it with a scientifically explained, a scientifically based explanation as to why the universe is at risk, because it's a fundamental scientific principle of heat death and entropy, which is, for the viewers, depicted as the city crumbling around the Doctor and the companion. So he can take all of these esoteric scientific explanations and make them visual and visually exciting and not dry for the young viewers watching. And that takes skill. That really does.
No, I was 5 or 6 at the time, and it wasn't dry for me. But when you look back and when you sort of talk about these stories, Charlotte, you think, well, God, that's not what I'm here for. That's not what I watched Doctor Who for. All that stuff, and yet they managed to pull it off. I mean, do you think kids have got is it that they've got a high tolerance for all that kind of stuff, or do they just, the things that we don't understand as children, we tune it out? Kind of like when you read a book when you're a kid and you don't understand some of the bigger words, but you carry on reading anyway. Do you think it's kind of like that with television? And what's your take on these stories and that sort of that brand of storytelling that Christopher H. Bidmead ushered in?
Well, first of all, I just think the amount of bravery and the amount of skill that, like you said, Tom was going. He was such this sort of monumental figure as the Doctor. The style of writing associated with him and the look of the show and everything. And they could have sort of been quite tepid, Jay, the new producer, and Bidmead and everybody involved, Peter as well as the new Doctor. They could have sort of like taken baby steps, but no, they went for it. And I think like nowadays, you see so many times in these shows or things that have legacy, people come in and they have no finesse. They have no understanding of, if they want to make something new, if they want to bring something forward or have their sort of ideas, it still needs to have the spirit and the feel of what went before. But it has to, but then you can still have that feeling of new, and that's what you said about these stories, that you definitely felt we've got harder sci-fi now. At the time, you got the youngest actor in the role that they'd ever had, and I think Davidson was quite a sort of out of field pick for a Doctor. He didn't really fit the template, and I feel like there was a big push to have intelligence and have these sci-fi concepts be a core part of the script. So to pull all those things off, it's incredible when you think about it, that they did it so well. And so sort of, like you said, kids, I think kids prefer it when you give them a challenge, actually. And I think there's that sort of risk of, oh, we need to make it simple, or we need to not be too intelligent because kids can't take that in. They might not understand every little part of it, but they can grasp a concept. The core.
I think if the other portions of the show are doing their work as well, through the music and the production design and the way that it feels tonally, then that will do some. It doesn't put it all on the scripts, the story, all that kind of thing. I think this sits very nicely, Anthony, in with shows like Sapphire and Steel, which I know were on slightly later at night, but there weren't any sort of rubber monsters at all in Sapphire and Steel. And this season 18 of Doctor Who, Bidmead's his entire sort of time with it was very light on that quota, on that fundamental, one would think, of Doctor Who. And yet it was still frightening, but in a kind of in a more sort of grounded and elemental way, I suppose.
Yeah, don't correct me. I'm not. What I'm saying about that particular season is, as a 10-year-old, it was so very different. And actually, now as much older, I appreciate that particular series for all the reasons that you've all just cited, because it is very intelligent, and actually the production values are significantly different here to the series before, because, as you say, Dan, it was looking a bit rough around the edges, wasn't it? And
they haven't got necessarily any more money. They hadn't been given like a Disney Plus massive cash injection. I think they've been given a touch more to do some to change the covers, to change the duvet cover, for example. It's surface stuff. The bulk of the shows, I think they just managed. I think J&T just managed the money slightly better.
Yeah, and I mean, they were being supported by Barry Letts, who was the executive producer on this particular one. And although, according to Bidmead, that Barry had very little involvement, where they did agree was the fact that Barry thought that Doctor Who had become a bit too silly, and so did Bidmead. And that fusion of those two people coming together, I think that Bidmead would say that he was attacking Jon from the front. And then there would be this other voice from Barry Letts behind him. And the two of them were pincer moving Jon into a situation by which he was creating the season that we do actually get. And I think that's a good fusion of the old and the new, to be honest. I mean, I love The Leisure Hive. The criticism of the first couple of minutes, with the shot of Brighton Beach. Too long, too silly, what was the reason? But it sets up that year really well. And I, as I say, becoming a fan later on in my years, those stories stand out as, real Doctor Who triumphs, don't they? There's some real goodies in that series, like State of Decay, written by Terence Diggs. It's a great story, and often gets forgotten perhaps, but full circle as well. I recently rewatched The Keeper of Traken, which I hadn't seen for a very long time. That's a very stylish production. Oh my goodness. Great story. It looks amazing. I love talking about old Doctor Who. I was really worried when you got to the Big Finish section about Capaldi that I wouldn't have a clue what to say. So thank goodness for Christopher H. Bidmead in season 18.
Christopher H. Bidmead was born in London, trained originally as an actor with the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. Okay. Later, he played several roles on the stage, television, and in radio, and positively thrived, throwing himself into each challenge. Really, he appeared opposite Diana Rigg on stage as well in this season. They call them seasons, don't they? At the RSC, there he is in tights with Diana Rigg, and he would joke about this quite frequently. But he used to complain about the quality of the scripts that he would get when he would work in television. He was a regular on the medical drama, the kind of soap Emergency Ward 10. And I think that was kind of what started him feeling like perhaps he could do better. And when the acting roles started to dry up a little, that was when he transitioned into writing. We do hear this quite a lot, don't we? I think Barry Letts had a similar sort of pathway through, David.
Yes, he did. And how he got into RADA was a wonderful thing. He was on a bus, a double-decker, going to work because he worked at an advertising agency. And the double-decker bus was going through London and central London onto Gower Street. And he looked out the window and saw all these wonderful, attractive women, as he said. He thought, well, how do I get to meet them? And he realized that it was the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. And he thought, well, I'll go and ask them for an audition. And he did. And they told him how much it would be. And he said, well, I don't have that money. And they kind of liked him because he was that rubbish. So they offered him a scholarship. And then he got an agent at the end of that. And the agent said, well, I represent Julie Christie. Birmingham rep want Julie Christie, but his agent said, in order for you to get Julie Christie, you've got to take Christopher H. Bidmead as well. And then obviously he did his drama that you've referred to and went into BBC Radio. And he wrote his only ever fan letter to Robert Banks Stewart, who said, and it was on New Scientist paper. And John at JNT went in there and said, I need a new script editor. And he said, well, I just happen to have this letter from somebody at the New Scientist. Are you interested? And he went, well, yes. And he called him in. And Christopher H. Bidmead said that essentially what happened was JNT led the interview and there was Barry Letts over in the corner. And he said, well, actually, I don't want the job because I think Doctor Who's a bit too silly. It's a bit too magical. And I think it should be more science-based. There should be rational explanations based in science for this. And he said at that point, Barry Letts suddenly came alive and said, oh, yes, absolutely. So, and that's when Barry Letts took over the interview. And that's when he found his kinship with it. And what I
probably call that an elevator pitch in the 21st century, David.
Absolutely. And he had quite he had quite everything that he did in his career was as a result of him saying, well, I'm going to give that a go. And I'm going to go and see that person and give him this script and say, well, either take it or don't take it. And he said they used to be that intrigued that they would commission it. And he said you couldn't get away with that now. But what he loved to do was a block transfer computation. He said, actually, he's erroneously credited for it because in Wikipedia and stuff that he invented it. He didn't invent it. What happened was the computer he was using at the time was the first computer to transfer data in blocks. So that gave him the idea about, well, what would happen if you could transfer objects or change objects using that form of block transfer computation? And what I love,
it was a spark that he saw. He obviously saw a way to take a concept like that, which I suppose to him and to audiences, we'd seen a sort of version of that on Star Trek, hadn't we? With the transporters going. So okay, kids would probably recognise that they'd be able to join the dots in between those two things, and we're kind of returning to that founding principle of Doctor Who to inform as well as entertain, which would have almost certainly chimed with Barry Letts, and I would imagine that Verity Lambert and Sidney Newman would have approved as well. And so it does, even though it feels revolutionary in some respects, it feels so Doctor Who too. It feels completely belonging.
I mean, Barry Letts back in the day when he was just producer, both he and Terence Dix both read The New Scientist to make sure that they were trying to keep in tune with what was, so they could give it a sciencey reason. as to what could happen. And what I particularly love about Christopher H. Bidmead and Logopolis is that the universe is being maintained from collapsing in a big heap by old people whispering pure mathematics in a little community and having that beamed out to things, which is a lovely scientific thing. And he wanted to, and you're absolutely right, Dan, with respect to Star Trek, when they've got their techno babble, as they used to call it in their script, they used to have to run it by a scientific advisor to say, is this in court? Could this be scientifically explained? Is this scientifically correct? And somebody would go yes or no or stuff like that.
Because even though Doctor Who had scientifically minded and experienced people like Kit Pedler involved before, they never had a scientific advisor as such in the way that Star Trek did, or Sequest DSV would in the 90s and things like that. So it's a difficult balance to strike, I think, but they did it admirably anyway, and still kept it fun. Bidmead, I think, was some of his ideas were so visual, or refinements of things that we'd had before. He was the guy who came up with the idea, a name for the Master's little gadget that would shrink people and things. He christened it the Tissue Compression Eliminator, which sounds, to some ears, Luke, it sounds like absolute nonsense, and yet it does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? It's sort of clever and it's in its simplicity, and you could sort of abbreviate it to TCE, and that sounds more sci-fi. So you could sort of have it whichever way you liked, really. And that was obviously revived most recently for Sacha Dhawan's incarnation of the Master. He had a lot of fun with that. I'm sure that Bidmead would have approved. But he was fascinated with the TARDIS as well, wasn't he? And he created not just the cloister room, but the cloister bell, the dreaded cloister bell, which we regularly say we hear too much of now. So Christopher H. Bidmead can take the blame for that, can't he, Luke?
Yeah, you can see the stuff that he's... My rose from Rose has fallen. You can see the stuff that he's put into the show has lasted the test of time as well. And the Tissue Compression Eliminator sounds a lot better than a sonic screwdriver.
Yeah.
So
he
yeah,
hated that as well.
Yeah, the TC, and also as well, he wrote probably the most famous regeneration of all. He did Tom's bowing out, and he did something different as well with the Watcher coming in as well in his explanation, being like, well, the Doctor lives all these different lives at the same time. They're all traveling around. There's going to be an incarnation that will want to come back and kind of help the other one try. Very good at this. Yeah, so the stuff that he's done is obviously left a massive lasting legacy on the show, and he will be remembered for it. And it's just iconic. The stuff that he put out is absolutely iconic as well. So it's phenomenal. It's a shame. It's a shame, but at least we got some classic stories out of him.
The notion of an in-between Doctor, Charlotte, in the way that we'd have with the Valyard or the Dream Lord, and I wouldn't say it's commonplace now, but nobody would ever think of doing anything like that until Christopher Bidmead did.
Well, yeah, because I think regeneration was seen as sort of this quite thing that was stuck, and that's how you did it. I know every time it was a different sort of look to it, but the mechanics of it were quite set in stone. So for him to basically, like you said, play with that and have the Watcher and sort of have that be part of it, and we've said this before when we talked about that story, there's such this sort of funeral vibe about it. It feels like somebody's dying, and I think having sort of a figure like the Watcher throughout it just adds to that feel. It just makes it, like I said, that scene when you don't know what they're talking about. And I feel like today we still don't. And that's what I'm saying. I think a writer today would be so tempted to show that scene with dialogue, and it takes restraint to go, no, it's more effective to have it in the distance, and we as fans sort of imagine what we think the conversation was.
Do you know what it reminds me of, Charlotte? That conversation. You know, when you're, it's sort of like when you're a kid or you're in a workplace and the grown-ups are talking, and you can see them through a door, an office window, or you're too far away to actually hear what they're saying. It's that sort of oh dear, something bad must be happening because
Yeah,
the
like-
someone's going to get the sack, or somebody's,
Yeah.
or somebody's been shagging someone they shouldn't, or something like that. Yeah.
It's that feeling of dread, and that
Yes.
story
Yeah.
also has that feeling of dread. But I think what Bidmead did so well was he understood this idea of how you deliver things is so important in a script, the format and how you do it, because if you just have a character stand there and say a load of gobbledygook with scientific terms and just go blah 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 blah, like people, we can't connect to that. We struggle, like unless you know, or unless you're a scientist yourself, you sort of goes over your head. So he wanted to have that hard concept, but he thought of, like you said, really imaginative, creative, visual ways. So it didn't feel dry, it didn't feel boring. It was actually really creative, and I think for me, some of those stories had this almost abstract feel with the designs and the planets and the way things looked. But like you said, as an adult, you look at that and you go, no, actually, he's talking about this. So
it never crossed my mind, Charlotte. It never crossed my mind as a child watching Legopolis that all they'd done was simply made a smaller model TARDIS. For me, somehow through the magic of TV trickery, they had made the TARDIS smaller, and Tom Baker was in that TARDIS. I mean, Christopher H. Bidmead was fascinated with the TARDIS. When he wasn't shrinking it down, he was sort of flipping it around, duplicating it, or turning it inside out. And it was one thing after another, and you think, oh, was he just bored? I mean, do you need, when you've got a gimmick like the TARDIS, do you really need more gimmicks? Do you need 0 rooms? But it wasn't like that. It was all in line with the themes and the driving story. I think.
Yeah, the difference is it added to. You didn't just see the console room and like the companions' rooms. The fact that you got told about the 0 room, Cloister Bell, the fact that you can go from high sci-fi to that room with the pillars and the ivy. It just sort of shown that the TARDIS is a magic box in so many ways. And I think we need to show that as much as we can. And Christopher, what I find so funny is a guy who was so entrenched with science and so entrenched in that world, I think probably had some of the most, like I said, beautiful and creative and artistic sort of pieces of this shows ever that's been on screen. So it sort of shows that you can be from one discipline, but you can also show so many other aspects. It doesn't just box you in. He showed that if you've got the imagination, if you've got the drive, you can do anything with this show. And I feel like he's one of the best writers we've ever had for that idea.
He wasn't on the show for very long, was he, Anthony? And yet he's sort of notorious in some senses. You know, his reputation went before him. I think that the way that he would look down his nose there through his glasses, is there some element of performance in this? I don't know. But you were lucky enough to interview Christopher H. Bidmead, weren't you, several years ago? What was that experience like? How did you prepare for that? And who was the man that you got to know during that short period of time?
It's a good question, Dan, because we're talking about 15 years ago. So almost what we were talking about at the very beginning of the show about convention appearances and people that hadn't attended conventions. I think I probably saw Christopher Bidmead at the 40th anniversary. I think that badge is probably his badge for that Panopticon event for 40 years. So that was the first time I think I'd ever seen him. So that was significantly into my convention journey. So I was a little bit worried about him in the sense of I thought he had a bit of a reputation to be a little bit difficult in interviews and hard to, kind of navigate and to get round and to work alongside. So when I did this interview, I think it was for Phantom Films, and there's the pictures. Yeah, great. I approached that with some trepidation. So I spoke to him just before we did that stage interview, and I kind of went through the questions that I was going to ask him. And hopefully at that point, he kind of saw somebody that was going to be quite articulate, and the interview was going to be intelligent enough for him. And he was very gracious. And it reminded me of the time, I think we were talking about this before, when I interviewed Hanif Qureshi, who also has a bit of a reputation for being not particularly kind to journalists, that I felt that this was not going to go as well as I felt it might have done. But because of that kind of preemptive strike I had with him, and we chatted, we got on really well in the hour that we spent probably before and during this interview and afterwards. So lots of the stories that we've kind of mentioned about the sonic screwdriver and about science was some of the things I talked about in this interview with him. And so he was very gracious and he was very kind, and he clearly had a love for the program in the year that he did it. To move away slightly from season 18 into Frontios, a question from the audience, because I've rewatched that interview just at the weekend in preparation for this. Somebody in the audience asked the question about Frontios, and were you proud enough to be asked back, given that you had script edited a whole year of Doctor Who, had sculpted and made it and created it? And he said, "Oh my goodness, who wouldn't be proud to be invited back to write 4 episodes of Doctor Who that were going to be screened in this year, in these months, and it was going to be my show, of course." So not only did he enjoy script editing season 18, but also enjoyed writing Frontios as well. But also, to pick up on Charlotte's point, I created, I don't know if I've got it here. You know, Charlotte, you were saying about being a skilled writer. One of the things I would have spoken to Chris about was the opening lines to the novelization of Logopolis. So I've just scribbled it down, and it kind of has a sense of his creativity and his, you know, his ability to write. The opening line of Logopolis is, "Events cast shadows before them, but the huger shadows creep over us unseen." So, you know, the opening for a book and about what was going to happen in Logopolis, you know, that kind of foreshadowing. He was a truly skilled writer, and in that
wrote characters well.
I enjoyed the time I spent with him. Yeah, it's great. Very lucky.
He wrote characters really well as well. I know in our previous, when we were doing the review of the episodes on the Saturday nights, we were often quite cold and critical of the ancillary or the supporting cast as to how we weren't invested in them. Auntie Vanessa is probably on screen for 5 minutes at the most. And I can't speak for everybody here on the panel, but I was heartbroken. I still am when she is murdered. And, you know, the Monitor. Oh, what a character the Monitor is. And the sadness when he disappears you know, when everything is, Logopolis is falling apart. He wrote characters that you would invest in. They were fully rounded from the moment they appeared on screen, and you would invest in them totally. I mean, he even wrote Adric well. I mean, that's how good he was. And I felt that when he wrote Adric, that was some of the best performances that Matthew Waterhouse was able to give, because Adric was this fully rounded character in the hands of Chris Bidmead, and he would just, that eye for detail, because Logopolis and Castrovalva as well, but Logopolis, there is so much going on.
Do you think he felt a duty? Do you think he felt a duty to those characters, David, having not exactly created them as such, but been a key figure in bringing them to the screen? Not that he'd got to redeem anyone as such, but that he probably knew them better than anybody else and could reach into them and to flesh them out as well as flesh the stories out. Because with hindsight, you wouldn't think that a man like Christopher H. Bidmead, writing the other things that he was writing, would take the time to novelize all 3 of his stories for what was a children's book line.
Yeah, and Logopolis, there is more going on in Logopolis than he's a fantastic prose writer as well. I mean, an interview I've heard, he's not very fond of reading science fiction. He thinks that he likes some of Philip K. Dick's ideas, but he said he was a terrible prose writer. I mean, so he's not. He's got his opinions, but his prose was amazing too. But there is more going on in Logopolis than a standard Russell episode. And he pulls, if you think of the end of season thing that Russell tries to do, or Russell has tried to do, and he'll throw a load of stuff at the screen and then he'll have a silly resolution.
Hope for the best, yeah.
Yeah. Christopher H. Bidmead is throwing all sorts at us. He's throwing chameleon circuits, he's throwing new characters, he's got Tegan, Aunt Vanessa the Master, the different planet keeping the universe alive. He's got the destruction of Nissa's world. He's got this character who's an in-between doctor, and it's Tom's last episode, so he needs to have to do that. He has to save the universe. He's got all this sort of stuff going on, and he pulls it together, and at the end of when the credits roll, you go, bugger me, you've done it. And it's just an amazing 90 minutes of storytelling. And then he carries it on in Castrovalva. And it's that. And even having the courage in Frontius, if I may just carry on, to put one of the main cast through a nervous breakdown because of a race memory of the Tractators, and showing Turlo, who go through a complete nervous breakdown because of that race memory, and having the courage to write that and to show it. Well, the guy was an absolute genius, and I don't think that the world of Doctor Who still probably isn't as appreciative of him as they should be. And I think
he moved on so quickly. I think too quickly. I believe that the show could have stood more of that, not necessarily taking any of that content any further, breaking down characters any further past that point would have probably been inappropriate. But I think that more of what he was doing, what he was mixing in, Gary, was actually not exactly taking the show places it hadn't gone before, but I think that it was really helping solidify it again with the target audience, and remind us that it was bigger than Tom Baker, that it was louder than Douglas Adams' voice, more idiosyncratic and more expansive than Philip Hinchcliffe's or Robert Holmes' take on the Whoniverse in that sort of gothic way. That it was bigger. You could go to different sort of phases and places, and that's why I describe it as almost elemental. He was succeeded by Anthony Reid as script editor, wasn't he?
Yeah, I know that he came back to do Castrovalva, and I think he script edited Kinda as well. The one reason that I wish that he would have stayed on longer as script editor is because I think he's the one writer, even if it was just in the two stories, Castrovalva and Frontios, I think that he's the one writer that nailed the concept that Davison was an old man in a young man's body. And I so wish that they'd done more with that. And I think had Bidmead stayed on throughout Davison's first season and possibly beyond, I think that we would have got more of that. The scene in Frontios where Davison is examining that sick person, and he has the half glasses on. I can't even tell you how much I love that scene. That is, even just with Davison wearing those glasses, kind of cements the idea that this is, a 1,000-year-old, Time Lord. He just happens to look younger right now. And I think that Bidmead, who I think helped develop that idea, that's why I wish that, he'd done more. I do want to say that in terms of what you just said, Dan, about that he's able to bring in concepts that really hadn't been seen in the show before. The fact that he can invest Logopolis with such an overwhelming sense of impending doom throughout its 4 episodes, And to me especially, and you showed the picture before, the long shot of the bridge, where we just see where we see the fourth Doctor of all doctors basically hanging his head in defeat as he listens to the Watcher tell him whatever he's telling him, you know, and then we see him in long shot gesticulating with the scarf blowing as, you know, the fourth Doctor is probably almost arguing with him. And it's like, what are they talking about? And the fact that right here you have the fourth Doctor, you know, the indomitable fourth Doctor kind of hanging his head in defeat and realizing that his end is near is incredibly powerful. And then in Castrovalva, where you see the newly regenerated fifth Doctor trying to hold it all together as his past incarnations bleed in, I think that you know, this is really an accomplishment, and the fact that Bidmead cannot make the story depressing, but we can still feel that sense of impending doom as the story goes on is, I just think, is tremendous. I used to not like Logopolis a lot because it didn't feel to me like a good capstone of the Gothic horror fourth Doctor, kind of an encapsulation of his entire era. But I thought, okay, but as an encapsulation of this entire season, the more science-oriented season, I think it's perfect.
Christopher H. Bidmead was a scientist, scientifically minded. You know, he would leave the show to go back to largely freelance writing on magazines like Personal Computer and PC World and Wired and all these magazines, a great many of which are still running today. And he'd be the founder of his own website in time as well, which was still publishing new articles until as recently as a few months ago. But he had a playful side too. I think he would often talk about his notions of swapping the Doctor out for a female incarnation played by Helen Mirren. Mainly, I think, as he would often remind us to reconnect with Miss Mirren because they dated in the 60s. I think I get the impression that he was somewhat burnt by that and wanted to to try and win her back in some way. But Helen Mirren as the Doctor would have been a pick for Christopher H. Bidmead. Mentioned it loads and loads of times. But there's lots of examples of him being more playful than you'd think. And I'm going to call this next segment the wit and wisdom of Christopher H. Bidmead. He was a lot more, being scientifically minded is one thing, but he wasn't afraid of the more sort of mundane advances, I suppose. I'm talking about social media. He embraced social media, enjoyed using X when it was called Twitter, and posted on his own 80th birthday. 80 years old. That's right. Twitter, rub it in, and an exclamation of despair. But he was very much part of a community over there. So he'd do what I would do. He'd tell dad jokes. He'd tell granddad jokes as well, Gary, which is exactly the kind of thing that I would do. He would make new friends even here. Even if he was somewhat suspicious as to their motivations, he questioned Linda here whether she was interested in his time on Doctor Who. But he would also take to task his former employers, the BBC and TV licensing in particular there, as someone who was, who didn't just talk the talk, walked the walk, and he was somewhat crusty. I think he underlined that reputation that he'd got, Anthony, that he didn't suffer fools gladly with some of that social media stuff, but always with a wink, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't see some of these posts. So yeah, absolutely. I think his reputation before and then what he became as he became older, he certainly became a bit freer, didn't he, by some of those posts? What I think about that interview that I did when you showed those pictures, Dan, and about why he didn't do another year. I asked him that very question, and I said, well, you know, why didn't you? And he said, well, I don't really know. He said that he didn't really know what the job was of that script editor on Doctor Who. So what he did was he said, I want a 30% pay rise. And if you agree that 30% pay rise, we kind of get an understanding how important the script editor role is on the program. They said, well, you know, him and Barry, John Nathan Turner and Barry Lett said, well, you know, we don't really offer big pay rises like that across the department. We might be able to offer you 10%. And he said, well, no, I want 30 because I think that's what the job is worth, because I'm creating a whole series of television programs. And they said, no. And that was the defining moment where he felt that it was, according to that interview at that time, for me, that was the reason why he didn't do a further series of Doctor Who. Which is regretful, isn't it? Because that
very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Obviously, we're talking here about the sad passing of Christopher H. Bidmead, writer and script editor on the classic series of Doctor Who, that so many of us grew up watching these stories, including people who've joined us in the live chat there on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X, dropping their comments and memories as well. So I think it's time we go and check in with them and see what they make of all of this so far. And what are their memories of not just those 3 stories, but that entire time? Yes, we've got several here. Great comments here. Thank you so much. First of all, Stephen Braddock has joined us on YouTube and says it's such a shame about Christopher H. Bidmead. He was so important to the direction of 80s Doctor Who. And David Mullen adds, Castrovalva and Logopolis fueled my imagination. See, these are very sort of Bidmead statements, aren't they? And were pivotal to getting me to watch the series. But Frontiers is perhaps his best written and captures his take on the Doctor perfectly. Obviously, it's got the added bonus to the fact that Davison's been playing the part for a little longer there too, Luke. So he wasn't so callow, wasn't so afraid of the part. I think Davison was initially afraid of the part. And so when you give him a story like that with so much going on, I mean, David correctly, I'm very definitely identified there some of the sophistication in that material, despite the fact there was rubber monsters, to keep an actor like Davison engaged, even though he too had decided to be leaving at that point. There was some great stuff in that season, and I do think that Frontiers is especially strong.
Yeah, and I think he said, didn't he, if the stories were like more like what they were in his last season, then he would have stayed. And that's talking about Frontiers and Caves of Androzani as well. So it's a testament to the writing and the direction that everything comes through at the end. But I mean, Peter Davison's a fantastic Doctor anyway, and this just cemented it even more. Funnily enough, we were at the con with Peter Davison on Sunday, because why not? And one of the Hooligans actors, Rob Peters, decided to ask him, in a convention full of Doctor Who fans and young Doctor Who fans, decided to ask him a question about his one appearance in Jonathan Creek. So says it all, really. Did
that go down well?
For Peter Davison, yeah, he had a great time. I can't repeat what he said because it wasn't very PG, but it went down very, very well. So
Dom Goes joined us on YouTube and says that Logopolis is a giant of sci-fi. Thank you and rest in peace, Christopher. And Stephen says, I'll never forget the Watcher on the bridge, or Tom hanging from that radio telescope. Gary, just as you said there, those interactions, seeing his past flash before him, memories in stone. Bidmead was Shakespeare, adds Richard there in the live chat. And David has also joined us, just simple David, just one word. It's that guy he's the David from the film Prometheus, I think that's what it is. Evening All, says David, watching on YouTube. I remember getting the New Beginnings Master Trilogy box set when it came out when I was 11, and then seeing Logopolis for the first time, and I knew what a dark, mature story it was. The fact that people can watch these stories all these decades on, Anthony, and feel the way that I did when I first saw that. You know, I was younger than David was here, but it stayed with me, and it still kind of haunts me, that story.
Yeah, and the comments here, Dan, in the chat, you know, Bidmead would hate it, wouldn't he? You know, if he was pushing for this scientific science fiction Doctor Who. Some of these stories that people are recounting here, you know, are magical tales, aren't they? You know, there's something magical about these stories that people are reminiscing about, and which is a million miles away from probably what Christopher Bidmead wanted. But it creates that kind of that feeling that you know, I think Stephen Braddock said just before there, you know, this fueled my imagination. So that in itself is magical, isn't it? So that's great.
I believed it. I suppose you could say that the one magic he did believe in was the magic of television.
Yeah.
Has anybody actually ever heard the commentary on the DVD of Logopolis between him and Tom Baker when they're actually in? Because there's Christopher Bidmead is wonderfully explaining the stuff and anything like that, and you get the very occasional from Tom Baker is, what on earth is going on here? And you can almost just to sort of like have a sort of like little dig at Christopher Bidmead. You hear this frosty sort of, well, if you actually paid attention, Tom, what actually is going on is, I only used to read my bits of the script. You know, that's you sort of that sort of frostiness was still there between them, and that commentary is one of, it's so funny in places.
I think you do find that with a lot of these commentaries. People, it's kind of like when families get together at Christmas or something. Or old school friends reconnected, a reunion, Gary. You find yourself slipping into the old dynamics. That's what I enjoy about some of these commentaries, just as David's described.
Yeah. I do want to say really quickly that, you know, we're talking about, you know, all this, how special his writing was. For me, my favorite line that he wrote for his 3 stories, and to me it's almost poetry, at the end of Castrovalva, when Shardovan says, "You made us, man of evil, but we are free." And then because I that line just every time. I love that.
What's fun for me, because I live quite close to Jodrell Bank, and like, so whenever I go past it, I just, because I'm a Doctor Who fan, I think of Tom hanging off it, because it was such a good idea to have such an iconic sort of British science thing, like such a good like thing as a central part of the story, but obviously it was in Doctor Who terms, it wasn't Jodrell Bank, it was something else.
Fairways Project.
But it's something that's still here now, and like it's got that Doctor Who link, so when I go past it I go, oh yes, there we go, there's a bit of Doctor Who.
Have you ever been tempted, Charlotte, to kind of break in and find the spot where the Doctor fell?
No, I have been visit though. I have been in to visit, but we weren't allowed to get that close.
Oh, okay.
Tanindra Singh asks, still been driven mad by these questions. Where does the Watcher fit in? If the Valeyard is the final incarnation, where does the Watcher fit? It's driving people mad after 45 years. Duncan the Funky Evans says Frontiers is an underappreciated story, but if you want to get really terrified by it, he suggests watch it in black and white.
Interesting.
I've never been tempted to do that. I think I might have to do that. Logopolis took a mega brain to write, says Domgo. I think it took somebody who must be very sure on where they were going to take that show and what they were going to do next. But Cesar of Diplos suggests that having Peter's Doctor in a coffin for part of his first story was just plain silly. I think it was the idea that I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere that was a deliberate thing as well, to gradually reveal the character to the viewers, because the kids had the shock of seeing the character change, and sort of if the Doctor was running around the entire time, it might be too much. So if now and again you sort of open the lid to check that he was still there, Anthony. It's a simple idea. It may well be silly, but it's Doctor Who. I like a bit of dash of silly.
I think, you know, if Doctor Who history corrects me right or wrong, I've got a feeling that the head of drama sent a memo down to John Nathan Turner about that very first episode of being too much in the TARDIS. And it was just a little bit too, I don't want to say dull or boring, because Bidmead's writing is never that. But I think the commentary from the upper floors of the BBC were saying, well, actually, the first episode is just set in the TARDIS. It's not exciting enough. And now you've got the Doctor in a box. is that exciting enough? So some of the other commentary around perhaps wasn't as positive as we might see it, because I absolutely agree with you. You're developing the character, you're showing the character, and every time that coffin, for want of a better word, that opening came down, you saw a glimpse of the Doctor. It was tantalizing, and then it went back up again. Yeah. So I kind of get a sense of why that's good. But I'm not sure everybody else viewed it like that. But I may have got that history completely wrong.
You could be right. David Mullen is also with us watching on YouTube and reminds us that it was Bidmead who first noted Russell T Davies was submitting a first draft material. He was jeered at the time. Yeah, I know that Russell was submitting material from a very young age, wasn't he, to multiple people, specifically at Doctor Who. The furthest he got, obviously, was Mind of the Hodiak, 85, 86. Gary, which I know Big Finish have quite recently sort of adapted, because that went missing, didn't it? Any of the other things that Russell T Davies submitted, he insists are lost to the mists of time, or have long since been recycled, or whatever. But he would say that, wouldn't he? He would say that.
Well, I mean, if I was to ask to compare Bidmead's writing to RTD's, for me, it's no contest.
Yeah.
Stephen O'Neill says, I remember watching The Leisure Hive 45 years ago. I didn't like the new theme tune, preferred the original theme tune and Time Tunnel. I loved the reinvention of it at the time, and it got everybody to sit up and pay attention just at the right time. It had been stuck in a rut, in my view, but obviously everybody's different. I think obviously it's 40 odd years ago now. But Stephen, I love the scenes of a TARDIS within a TARDIS within a TARDIS. More nightmare fuel, I think, Luke. You see this stuff when you're in a formative phase. You think, well, it's a magic box. I know what it can do. It's bigger on the inside than the outside. And then it does something that you would never expect it to do. Haven't seen it done before. And
the fact it goes in and it gets darker and darker, and darker every time as well, and then you've got the muffled sound of the cloister bell going off in the background. You're like, ooh, this is not normal. It done something very different within. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
Apparently, Bidmead himself didn't want the flashbacks at the end of Legopolis. That was something that John Nathan Turner conceived of and insisted on. I think I'd heard that before too. Unimaginable to not have that as part of that story now, but there we are. That's the creative process for you. And finally, Richard Brooks adds, poor old Aunt Vanessa, just like you said there, David. We still miss Aunt Vanessa and mourn her loss as well. Thank you for all those comments, all that interaction over on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. Lots of personal takes on the stories and the man there, Christopher H. Bidmead. How much we knew about him then. Do we know a huge amount more now? Probably not, but I think that could be how we like it, how he liked it, to preserve that sort of mystique, Charlotte.
Yeah, so much to say, and it's sad that we keep losing these classic either script writers or actors, but we should just celebrate more than I think what they've contributed. But I do have to go, and thank you for some people who before 10 was like, Charlotte, it's nearly 10, so we'll say good night. So thank you very much. But
are you up with Anthony again?
Anthony also needs to go.
It's the 10 o'clock crew.
It's the 10 o'clock, yeah.
I've enjoyed my time immensely talking about Christopher H. Christopher H. Bidmead. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to reminisce with you all. It was great.
Yeah. That's an MCC hat, by the way.
See you.
Our pleasure. Great to have you both back. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Luke, that's a Marylebone Cricket Club hat, by the way.
Of course it is. Of course.
How do you know? Okay, so give us some inside, not baseball, inside cricket ball. Is that something to do with the band? Is that some kind of colours?
Yes, it's the MCC colours, Marylebone Cricket Club colours on the hat.
There we are.
Yeah,
I will just really quick before we jump away from the mammoth contribution of Christopher Bidmead. The one thing that I think that the Castrovalva began, and this is really the fault of future writers, it began what I think became the long overused concept of the long extended post-regeneration trauma. I mean, Troughton was pretty much himself in 10 minutes. By halfway through the first episode of Robot, Tom Baker had settled. Pertwee took about an episode and a half, but that was in the midst of resetting the whole format of the show. But to me, the whole post-regeneration trauma in Castrovalva can be explained because the laws of cause and effect had been upended in Logopolis, and the regeneration required the intervention of a projection of the Doctor's future self coming back and setting things up so that things worked out. But in Twin Dilemma and Time in the Ronnie and even the TV movie, you didn't need that whole spend a half of a story in post-regeneration trauma. I wish they'd stopped that. It was very unique to what Bidmead laid out in Logopolis and Castrovalva, very specific to that situation. I wish they'd left it there, but unfortunately, future writers didn't. It's one of the things that made this kind of trilogy here very special, and I wish they didn't need to keep going on and on about it with other Doctors.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Gary.
I agree now. It's not something I ever dwell on too much, but yeah, you're right. I read all 3 of his novelizations of his stories when I was a kid, cover to cover, several times. And again, there were lots of passages that I couldn't quite get a grasp of. I was very, very young. But that's the beauty of the target range of books. You can go back to them when you're slightly older. And obviously, that's a huge selling point of most classic Doctor Who stories, but particularly, I think, that the work of people like Christopher H. Bidmead, that the show could attract this caliber of person, people from outside of the traditional catchment, I suppose, that they would look to employ to work on the show, to bring unique skill sets, voices, and simply ways at looking at people and the spirit of adventure, I suppose, that Christopher H. Bidmead managed to tap into. And maybe any more of that may have broke the spell. I don't know. We'll never know now, will we? But yeah, I was very sad to see that he was no longer with us, Gary. And obviously, you treasure your Target books as well.
Absolutely.
We all do, don't we?
Oh,
absolutely.
Hey,
that's wonderful.
Even have the hardback for this one.
Oh, the hardback.
Oh, I used to have to get those out of the library if I wanted to read the hardbacks. So Christopher H. Bidmead was a key figure, key appointment on the series at the time when this was my Doctor Who. This was when it was all really sort of getting entrenched in me, burrowing in deep. And this entire time between, say, 1980 and 1985, for me, I can't hear any criticism against that entire stretch of time, Luke. It's always, if when people do criticize it, I don't care what they think because I know what it means to me. And the work of people like Christopher H. Bidmead is the writers that he brought through and the characters that he helped create. My childhood is unimaginable without them, and without seeing his name on the end credits as well, and knowing I was going to get a certain kind of story. Maybe I don't know. Thank you to Christopher Hamilton Bidmead. At least we do know what the H stands for. Wasn't an invention.
So when you say that era, are we including Fort to Doomsday, or we just
if I have to
that one? Okay.
Yeah,
I like Fort of Doomsday.
It's all right. Fort to Doomsday it improves when you rewatch it. The time flight, but Fort to Doomsday, yeah.
Okay.
I enjoy them. I enjoy them all for what they are, I suppose.
I like Jodie Whittaker, so I can't talk. So.
Who?
I don't know what he's talking about, Gary. Okay, yes. Thank you to Christopher H. Bidmead, and you can share more of your memories, your specific tastes in individual stories, and any interactions that you two may have had with the man himself, whether it was in the real world, whether you were lucky enough to meet him, as Anthony did, or did you have any exchange of any kind through the online world there, either about Doctor Who or about those scientific matters that meant so much to Christopher H. Bidmead and informed his work both before and during and latterly after Doctor Who. We're all ears. Let us know. Let us know.
Welcome to Type 40. Is that good enough? I explode or exterminate, exterminate, exterminate.
The late, great Christopher Bidmead. When we visit...
Really quickly, I just want to say, I just now in this instant realized what we all really needed and what I would have loved is for, in the 90s, for Chris Bidmead to write Fifth Doctor Missing Adventure for the range of Missing Adventures. That would have been spectacular.
That would.
He was, I think he was approached. I think I've heard he was approached.
Wow.
And there was a couple of things he did for Big Finish, so he was involved to some degree. But I think the guy he'd moved on in many respects. I think, and that's not in any kind of disrespectful way. I don't think he was sniffy about his involvement with Doctor Who at all. But I think it's kind of like we spoke about Peter Capaldi earlier on. It's not that Peter Capaldi doesn't want to be thought of as Doctor Who, doesn't feel that he's still the 12th Doctor. He certainly wants to be involved with Doctor Who fans. He's very proud of the fact that he did it. But he's doing other stuff. And I think that Renaissance man, I think they used to have an expression for people like that, didn't they? I think that Christopher H. Bidmead was a similar character who approached his life and his work from a similar place, I think. But we're all very grateful for his contribution. And again, it takes a while to get used to the fact of these names, these personalities not being there anymore, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's us all boxed up too and ready to go. Another edition of Type 40 Live, all wrapped up, and lots of fabulous contributions from everybody there in the live chat. Thank you guys for all of your memories as well. There's some debate as to the quality of some of those stories, but you're never going to agree on that sort of stuff, are you? Never. Okay, so you know what to do and where to do it. You can come and say hello, as always, through our social media, Instagram and X, at Type 40 Doctor Who. And there's a post too in the Type 40 Facebook group commemorating Christopher H. Bidmead. Posted, I think you posted, didn't you, David? You dropped that in for us.
I did.
It was Duas that broke the news, I believe, wasn't it? And you very speedily posted it. And there's comments if you want to add your tributes there too. Get them in, share those memories, and if you can pick a favourite between Logopolis, Castrovalva, or Frontius, drop that in there. Maybe we'll run a poll of some sort. That could be quite undignified thinking about it, but it's all the fun of celebrating and talking about Doctor Who, which we do there over and over again through the feed at the Type 40 Facebook group. You can send us some more feedback too, any kind of interaction whatsoever, maybe some suggestions, and obviously your thoughts about Christopher H. Bidmead's time on Doctor Who. Whatever you like, get it through to us through the wonders of SpeakPipe on the smartphone, in the very palm of your hand. More Doctor Who coming up. So much Doctor Who, the past, the present, and the future to get stuck into. Who cares whether the show is on pause? Who cares if it's going to be returning to production anytime soon? There's never going to be any shortage of things for us to dive back into, to bounce around here on the panel. Everybody that's joined us for this edition of the show and our other panelists as well. Stay tuned for more wherever your tastes lie and whenever you found the show. That's very much how it works. Obviously, thank you to Anthony Weiner. Great to have him back. Charlotte Shields, as always, and starry-eyed girl Sarah Graham. Hopefully we'll be conjuring her back up again in the not-too-distant future. Got some more comments here. People suggesting Time Flight isn't a masterpiece. Oh, you must be joking. Funky says, I often defend Time and the Rani, but that regeneration trouble is down to the Rani drugging up the Doctor. Yeah, I think we all defend the version of the show that had an effect on us when we were kids, don't we? If we've got a connection with it. Every story is someone's favourite. Just the same. I think every story, every episode is someone's first story. It's so particular to all of us. John Duncan Shaw has joined us too and says, I remember that far back. I've read all 3 of the novelizations that Gary was clutching just minutes ago.
Don't forget the Christmas Invasion had quite a large amount of regeneration trauma as well. Because Tennant didn't actually make a proper appearance till right near the end of the episode.
Each of them has sort of broke new ground, I suppose, but just some of them have been more major than others, haven't they? When you look back, Philip Roy says Gary is so right about regeneration trauma. You need to see who the new Doctor will be, not too far into the first episode. Otherwise, you run the risk that the audience will not come back for episode 2. And that would have been even more the case, Luke, in the classic days, which the 25-minute chunks, you might only get 2 scenes with a new actor in the role.
Well, we might not even get another season with the actor in the role, so there's no point even wondering now, is it? So who knows? I got to go on your point, Dan. The reality is no one's favourite episode. Apart from me, I'm the only person in the country that liked it.
There you go. There you go. It just goes to prove my point. Chevel's here as well. Awesome. Thanks for a great evening. She says it's our pleasure. And people discussing their favourite regenerations too. Get stuck in by all means, and you can do just the same by hitting up our playlists here at the Type 40 and Rumble YouTube channels. So there's our regular deep dives into any figure in Doctor Who history, whether they were behind the camera, in front of the camera. They're all of equal importance to us. There's always plenty to talk about. There's our regular early editions of Type 40 Live, our big Who's every Thursday with those big debates, big discussions. And there's our deep dives, such as into the each new Blu-ray box set release, Season 13, coming soon. You're not going to want to miss that. So make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, check you're still subscribed, because YouTube in particular is very naughty like that. And hit our cloister bell to get all the notifications about what's coming next, when, and how.
Go on then.
You're watching Type 40.
Woo!
Type 40 Live, wetting your whistle with mountains of Doctor Who conversation, and this time our tribute to the late Christopher H. Bidmead, who passed away at the beginning of last month. That's just been recently confirmed by his family. Thank you, everybody, for joining in with these. I always believe that these discussions should be a celebration. In all seriousness, their work has brought us joy, and it's sad that they're no longer with us.
Yes.
But to celebrate their work, to get together, David, and compare. That's what the fandom's for, isn't it?
Yeah, and these people were really important to us through our journey through our fan journey, and they brought us probably lots of joy. Sometimes might have brought us some frustration, but without them, we wouldn't have something to really love, hate, be ambivalent about, and so it's only right that we pay tribute to them in a warm way, because it was a job for them, but it's a huge part of our lives. So, and something that we enjoy. So, we should just sort of like doff our caps and say, thank you for the memories. Thank you for those good times, and making us think. And I think that's the most important thing, making us think and giving us a space whereby we could escape what was going on in the world at the time. And I think what I've
enjoyed most about this edition of Type 40 Live, David, has been seeing people still wrestling with enigmas that were birthed by Christopher H. Bidmead. The best part of 50 years ago now. I think that's amusing. I think it's appropriate, And I would imagine that he'd be fascinated by that in the way that I think I probably will be for the next couple of days. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch at least one of these stories, just in the same way that you have, Luke. Are you going to try and get Frontios in before the end of the week now? Is he scratched?
Yeah, I was gonna try and do it just before stream, but time got away from me anyway. But I didn't. But I need to get Thursday Murder Club done as well. So Thursday Murder Club and Frontios is my watch this week. So it's gonna be a very fun week.
Excellent stuff. Whatever's going on or not going on, there's more of our brand of news, reviews, previews, discussions, nostalgia, and more coming your way when we return on the next Type 40 Live. We mark our 250th show. That's coming this Thursday from 8 p.m. Make sure you're subscribed and notified and all of that. Gentlemen, thank you. It's great to have you back on for another innings, David. You knocked a few. What's the expression? Do you knock them for six in cricket, or is that baseball? God,
you hit them for six. I apologise for my abrupt interruption at one point. That's me charging the bowler before the ball has been delivered, which is very not cricket. And sometimes I forget to turn my microphone off, and it's all a bit wrong. And I realise I've spoken when I shouldn't. But I've enjoyed the innings tonight. It's been a sort of it's been a nudging and nerdling innings tonight, but it's been an enjoyable one.
There you go, Luke. Again, congratulations on another fabulous occasion there, screening Hooligans after all that work. It sounds like a very enthusiastic crowd, and that Q&A, it obviously went down very, very well. I hope we've done our part to help you recover. Yes. And thank you for representing Type 40 there as well, for the people who took the time to say hello and to give you a flower in one case. It's really something.
Yeah, it was really, it was bizarre because there's people coming up to you on the street being like, "Oh my God," and I was like, "Oh shit, what do I do here?" Because I'm a menace. But no, everyone was very, very gracious to come up and spoke to me as well. And I am taller in real life than I look on screen. This still doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, everyone was really, really nice that I met. So everyone that was in the chat who come up and said hello, thank you for being so nice. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you again down the road sometime at some other event, maybe somewhere, but who knows where our paths will cross. But I thought Hooverville was the screening was a nice place to round off Hooligans and send that off into the sunset. That was really nice. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, just a massive thanks. And yeah, nice. This has been finish off my Doctor Who weekend with a fitting tribute. It was very, very nice.
There you go. We're going to go and sort of run around this maze of ramps and corridors and cubbies for the next couple of days before the next show, Gary, or at least I am. I think I'm going to have to get the Mr. Sheen out. There's some finger marks over there, which I blame Shooty Gatwa, so I'm going to go at that.
Put your rollerblades on and just kind of go all over this. But I mean, thank you so much for having me on and give me a chance to help pay tribute to such a wonderful writer. I think the 80s Who would have looked very different had it not been for the talents of Mr. Bidmead. So I'm grateful for the chance to come on and pay tribute to him. I know that after ever since I first saw Logopolis, whenever I used to have computer problems, I just used to pound on my keyboard in frustration. Now I just talk to it and hope that chanting to it will fix all the connections and everything. But it never works. It never works.
Rubbing it the wrong way.
Yeah, you got
to rub it more vigorously to achieve the desired results.
I just talk to it like the Logopolitans did.
Is it in a logical regression? Is it in a logical regression then, Gary? It's not playing.
I think we've regressed quite enough for this edition of the show. Going to leave it parked right there. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40 Live. Back for show 250 coming soon. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.